What's up, everybody? It's Monday morning. You're watching Brunansky's vlog, episode 3. We got a lot to cover today. We are going to switch up the format a little bit so it makes more sense to the tagline movie news, movie reviews, and a little bit more. So go ahead and stay with us. We're going to jump right now into the news segment because San Diego Comicon was this past weekend and there was a lot of news that dropped. So we'll go ahead and jump into that. Thanks for watching. I hope you've clicked subscribe. And if you haven't, make sure you go ahead and do that by the time this video ends. All right, let's cut to the news. All right, San Diego Comicon was this past weekend, and we got a lot of movie trailers. Now, if you're following along on my Twitter page for Brunansky's vlog, as you can see here below on the screen, you will have seen all of these trailers that we're about to talk about, plus a few more, because I've been posting them there as they've dropped online. I throw them up on the Twitter. So if you haven't clicked the Twitter page yet, please go ahead and do that. That way you can stay up to date with everything that's going on here on the show, as well as things we may be covering on future episodes. And then also it'll help you join in the conversation in the comments section below, because you'll have a reference point for what we're speaking about. So if you haven't been following me on Twitter, you're going to want to go ahead and head over there to check out the Justice League new trailer dropped, which is leaps and bounds better than the first trailer that they dropped. The new movie Bright that stars Will Smith that's coming out on Netflix, they dropped that official trailer. Pacific Rim 2 and Thor Ragnarok all dropped. Now for television, we had The Defenders, Krypton, and The Inhumans all dropped trailers all weekend long. It was pretty insane. It was pretty great for us as movie fans. So go to my Twitter, check that out, and then you can join in on the conversation in the comments below. So if I'm forgetting anything, just go ahead and leave that comment and say, hey, Jeremy, you forgot about this trailer. It was super dope, and you need to check it out. So I can go back and check that out, and then other people who may have missed it can also check it out. All right, so let's go ahead and move on here. Now, rumors abound that Ben Affleck won't be Batman anymore. He stated this weekend in San Diego Comic-Con that he is still going to be Batman. He's still excited about it and everything else. The question is, do we believe Ben Affleck? Yes, no. So here's what I mean by that. Clearly he's Batman in the Justice League. I mean, that movie's almost done. It's going to be coming out in November. We can see that he's Batman. Beyond that, though, he said in meetings, in press meetings, that he was going to be writing, directing, and starring in the Batman movie. Now, he is no longer writing and directing this movie, as we found out last week on last week's episode. Director and writer Matt Reeves will be taking over and moving that forward. So it is possible that as time progresses, we may see Ben Affleck bow out of the Batman role, and we may just have him for Batman v Superman, and we may also just have him for Justice League. Which, if that's the case, that's fine. A lot of people have played James Bond, and you know, the Bond franchise really hasn't missed a step there because of a different actor. It may have been bad writing, but it wasn't the actor's fault necessarily. So switch up the Batmans, that's great. Not a big deal for me, but just find someone that can do the job and is interested and hungry to do the job so we get a good Batman. Westworld Season 2 dropped some footage at Comic-Con this past weekend, but did not announce the premiere date. They just said that it's expected to air later this year. So we're closing in on August. That's just a couple months to go. So hopefully maybe in the fall we'll see it drop, and that'll be pretty great because I loved Season 1. I thought it was a great show. I thought it was probably one of the best shows I watched. And it is a challenging show if you haven't watched it, because it deals with the idea of what humanity would be like if you could do whatever you want without consequence. And because of that, it gets into some very dark and very disturbing moments in the show, but the way in which they deliver those moments opens the door up for discussion on, is it right, is it wrong, what's the moral in the story, because of how they actually tell their story, which is pretty great. So to the Westworld writers, I give you all the kudos, I give you the high fives, and I can't wait for Season 2. Charlize Theron said she's interested in her next movie, Atomic Blonde, and Idris Elba should be the next 007 James Bond. Now, I'm excited to see both, assuming Idris Elba is actually Bond. I was hoping for Idris to actually be Lex Luthor in the new Batman and Superman movie, but they did not go that way. They went a very different way, much to my chagrin. So, but I would welcome him into the Bond franchise. He's a great actor. He's got swagger that fits the persona and role of James Bond. And for some characters, the character's race is built into the construct of who that character is. So for example, Black Panther, the new movie that's coming out by Marvel, he is actually the king of an African country. So it would be odd to see someone like Jake Gyllenhaal playing that role because the race of the character is built into the construct of who that character is. To me, Bond has always been an idea more than an actual person. So he personifies certain qualities more than he celebrates any one particular race. So if Idris Elba wants to play a British spy named James Bond 007, I'm with it, and I'm looking forward to it if it actually happens. Blumhouse and Todd McFarlane have joined forces, and they're going to be giving us another Spawn movie. And I think we're well overdue on this because the last Spawn movie, the only Spawn movie, live action that we've had was back in 1997. And as you can tell, it's now several years later, decades actually, and we're due for a new Spawn movie. So if you're not familiar with Blumhouse, they're a smaller studio that specializes in horror films. So they've actually created this quite remarkable business strategy, and they take these smaller horror movies that have a low budget and low cost to make, and then they make tons of money off of them. So that's great, and I'm excited to see what comes of this new Spawn film. I like the possibility of practical effects with Blumhouse specialties mixing with CGI that kind of leans more towards the specialties that the character Spawn would need. So yeah, I'm excited. I hope it works out. And as new footage and new info rolls out, we'll be discussing that here on the show. Okay, that's it for the news this week. There was an abundance of news that dropped at San Diego Comicon, and there was absolutely no way I was going to be able to get to everything. So if there was a news story that dropped or a trailer that I missed that you were particularly excited about, leave it in the comments below. Just say, hey, Jeremy, dude, how did you forget this? The answer is simple. There was so much information, it was impossible to cover everything. My Twitter feed was literally on fire the whole weekend because of everything that was going on at San Diego Comic-Con. So if you have something particular that you were like, yes, throw it in the comments below. Stay excited. Let's keep the conversation going. And we're going to move now into the movie review segment. So before we do that, I was able to hit the movie theaters like a boss this weekend. I saw 4 movies this weekend that I'm going to be covering here. If you prefer to read over watch, you can go to my WordPress, Brunansky's blog, as seen below, and you can actually read those reviews there too. Now, the 4 movies I saw this weekend in order of me watching was War for the Planet of the Apes, Dunkirk, Despicable Me 3, and finally Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. So let's go ahead now and hear a little bit more about those 4 movies in our movie review segment. Okay, over this past weekend, I was able to see a bunch of movies, and actually the full count is 4. So the 4 movies I saw we're going to talk about, so let's go ahead and jump right into this first one right now. First movie I saw this weekend was War for the Planet of the Apes. Now this completes the trilogy that was started a few years back, where we actually see Caesar as just a normal ape who's being experimented on to try and help find a cure for Alzheimer's. From there, everything escalates, and he actually gets super intelligence, and he actually becomes a leader, a father figure, and a warrior by the end of this trilogy. Now, a lot of people might be thinking, what's so great about this new trilogy that separates it from the previous films that everybody that's a little bit older grew up on? And the answer is pretty simple. This isn't really a movie about the apes. This is a trilogy strictly about Caesar. The humans that come into it all play a faction that lead into who Caesar is and what he eventually becomes, which is pretty great because it's almost like a biblical Moses tale where we see this guy coming up, he's chosen, he's reluctant, and then he has to make that decision to be the self-sacrificing leader to move his people into the promised land, if you will. So I won't give any spoilers away on this, but I will say that War for the Planet of the Apes was an okay movie. I wasn't wowed by it, but I wasn't disappointed. I did have a few issues with things. For instance, when they move everybody into this military base in the mountains, they have a full load of security going on, but yet somehow this tiny little girl is able to just kind of like walk right into everything and then give Caesar food while he's imprisoned. How does that happen? They also make a claim that as the virus that's killing people takes a hold of humanity, humanity actually loses its ability to think and becomes reduced to an animal-like state. And I feel like since that little girl was already able to get in without anybody noticing her, it's probably a good bet that most of those soldiers were already suffering the effects, as you'll see later on in the movie. But again, I won't get into spoilers because I still think you should see this in theaters. The overall premise is pretty good. There are a few missteps, so be prepared for a lot of slow moments in the movie, followed by it ramps up and then it's just going again with another battle scene. It's a little bit of stop and go, but it is enjoyable, and I definitely recommend you go see War for the Planet of the Apes to complete this new trilogy, and I'm going to go ahead and give it a high five. Alright, next up, I saw Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan's new movie, and I saw this shot in the 70mm screen. We did have one here nearby, so I went over and checked that out. This movie is gorgeous. I was blown away by the cinematography on this film. Christopher Nolan in general does a great job, but this film in particular, the way he was able to shoot things, and also let me mention something that you don't really hear too much about, and that is sound design. The sound design in this film blew me away. Now there are scenes, I don't know who was doing all the Foley work and the ADRs on this, but it literally sounded, in my theater at least, it sounded like those bullets were ripping through metal that was right next to my head. It was insanity. I loved it. This movie is so intense and so stressful from almost immediately to the conclusion, you will be on the edge of your seat the entire time. Grab a bag of popcorn because you're just going to be sitting there like, it's incredible. I loved this movie. This has bumped Baby Driver from number 1 to number 2 of my favorite films for the year. This is a great film. It's less than 2 hours, which was a surprise for Christopher Nolan because his films usually do tend to run on the longer side of things. But you don't really get a good feel for the characters, and you're not supposed to, because like Game of Thrones, you don't know who's going to be lasting and who's going to be dying. So don't really worry too much about investing yourself in any one particular character because you don't really know what their fate's going to be. And I'm not going to spoil it here because I want you to go see it. Now this film deals with heroism and survival. If it's not the actual heroes, the military who are stuck on Dunkirk beaches trying to get away from the German occupation, it deals with these British citizens who are called to arms to help go to that beach and rescue those soldiers and bring them back on behalf of the British Navy. So what you're seeing is you're seeing heroes needing saved, and you're seeing common citizens becoming heroes. So it's a very good movie overall. The story is great. The cinematic landscape that they paint is incredible. And make sure you see it in the biggest screen possible, because when they do the airplane scenes where you see them fighting over water, it's pretty dope. I'm not gonna lie, because they do far back wide open shots, and it's like you're flying a plane right behind them. Everything they did in this movie I really enjoyed, but again, my one critique was character development. But again, we're not really supposed to get to know these people. We're just supposed to see people trying to survive and other people stepping up to the plate to become heroes. So Dunkirk gets all the high fives from me. Definitely check this out, and definitely see it in the biggest screen in your area. Boom. Next up, we have Despicable Me 3. This is the 4th film in the franchise because we had Despicable Me 1, Despicable Me 2, Minions, and now Despicable Me 3. And wow, this movie, it was a movie. I can't begin to tell you how bored I was during this film. The jokes are predictable. You can sense what the joke is going to be. You can sense what the punchline is going to be. And you can even predict what the outcome of the joke will be down the road. I was almost falling asleep in the theater. That's how much this movie could not keep my attention. Now, typically, as of late, we've had a lot of movies come out that are cartoons that parents can take their kids to, that the parents can also enjoy while they watch it with their kids. Despicable Me 3 is not that movie. This movie is geared specifically for children, so my best recommendation is to not tell your kids this movie exists. That way they don't get excited and they don't ask you to take them to see the film in theaters, ruining your morning. Now, if somehow the news that this movie is out slips past the radar and the kids find out and the kids are like, "Mom, Dad, can you take me to see this movie?" Say yes, because the kids will enjoy it, but then hire a babysitter and the babysitter can take the kids, so you still don't have to enjoy this boring film that probably won't keep your attention. All right, fourth and final, we have Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets. Now, this is based off of a graphic novel that I did not read, so I had no reference point going into this movie about what this film would be like, what the characters, etc. All I knew is Luc Besson did this, and I'm a big fan of Luc Besson. There's a visual style in each of those films that is unique to cinema. Similar to Tim Burton. When I see Luc Besson's work, I know that's Luc Besson. When I see Tim Burton, I know it's Tim Burton. It's just, he has an imprint that is specific to his films, and I love it. So I was really excited going into this movie, even though I really didn't know anything about it, except that 2 agents are charged with saving the galaxy from an impending threat. That's enough for me. I'm there. And I'm gonna say I was not disappointed in this movie. I actually enjoyed it. I know it's getting a lot of negative press right now. Maybe some of it's warranted, maybe it's not. I really had a good time in the theater with this movie. I will say that the dialogue in this is not great. It's actually pretty bad because the dialogue feels like it's written for a young adult audience or teenage. So it doesn't really feel like normal people speaking. That doesn't have a normal human conversational pattern or anything like that. It's very to the point. This is what's going on. And that kind of worked my brain into a frazzle. But after about 15 minutes, I was kind of over it. And I just stuck to the visuals. The story is actually very good. I was a little confused by how they could write a story that well, but then not do such a great job on the dialogue. But hey, everybody has their strengths, everybody has their weaknesses. Clearly their strengths were world building and creating a story versus actually getting into the conversational aspect of the movie. And that's cool. Variety is the spice of life. This movie has got spices for days. So I recommend that you guys go check out Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets. I did see this in 3D. It was advertised as a 3D event. Marketing did not lie. This movie looks fantastic in 3D. The colors and everything like that within the worlds have a super awesome depth to them in 3D that you don't really get, in my opinion, for most 3D movies. So if you have 3D in your area, I definitely recommend you put those glasses on, you sit down, and you get prepared to be immersed into this crazy visual world with kind of bad dialogue. But otherwise, Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets is getting at least one high five from me because I walked out of the theater smiling, and in the end, that's kind of what it's about. All right, now before we take off, we have just a couple more things we want to take care of, so let's go ahead and roll to that. All right, so before we sign off, it is Monday, which means the weekend box office results are in. So as we just covered, I saw 4 movies this weekend. Let's go ahead and see what everybody saw based off of those numbers. So coming in at number 1, we have Dunkirk. Dunkirk made $50,500,000. So job well done, Dunkirk. As you just heard in the review, you should be seeing this if you haven't already. Girls Trip came in at number 2 with $30,370,720. I'm not surprised at all that Girls Trip is in the top 5. When I pulled into the theater this weekend, there was just hordes of women in and out the whole time. If I was driving into the movie, they were leaving from just seeing a show. When I was leaving, they were all waiting in the lobby. There were so many women at the theaters this weekend. I am not surprised that Girls Trip did this well at all. So job well done, Girls Trip. You knew who to market to. You knew your campaign strategy for getting people into the theater to see your film. I give you the thumbs up. That's great. So hopefully, if you haven't seen that and you're curious about if you should, maybe you should because it's doing pretty well so far. Number 3, SpiderMan Homecoming. SpiderMan Homecoming came in at $22,010,000. Still not surprised. It's Spider-Man. It's July. It's going to make money for a couple weeks at least. War for the Planet of the Apes came in at number 4 at $20,400,000. This movie keeps chipping away. It's still in the top 5. As you just heard, I still recommend people see it. And if you watched previous episodes, you heard my review about Spider-Man Homecoming, and you should be seeing that also. And finally, coming in at number 5 is Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets. Now, Valerian came in with $17,020,000. So that's not great. But again, I think most of that could be due to the bad word of mouth that was coming out of this film initially. Plus, as I just stated on the review, the dialogue in it is pretty bad. So I'm not surprised it did poorly in the theater, but I am surprised it's in the top 5 considering the negative press it got. I still went and saw it. The theater I saw it in was not very crowded, but I had a great time in it, and I still recommend people go see it. So job well done, Valerian, on still making it into the top 5. I think that's pretty dope, and I'm going to go ahead and give you one more high five for that. All right, so now coming out on DVD and video on demand this week, we have the movie Gifted, Boss Baby, Ghost in the Shell, and Unforgettable. Now, I have only seen on this list Ghost in the Shell. I did not see Boss Baby, though out of the 4 of these movies, I am most surprised by Boss Baby because Boss Baby made a ton of money, and I don't know why. But again, I haven't seen it, so that's probably why I don't know why. But it's Alec Baldwin. I'm a huge fan of Alec Baldwin. Say what you will about his personal life and what he gets caught doing on camera. That aside, he's still a phenomenal actor, and I'm always interested in what his next movie is going to be. So I might actually end up just renting on Redbox Boss Baby or just streaming it. I don't know. But it made a ton of money, and it bewilders my mind. All right. Finally, on last week's episode, I mentioned how I thought Batman, the 1966 TV show, might have had the best big screen adaptation. So what I mean by that is going from the television series to the movie theaters and not really missing a step. The movie actually felt like the TV show and kept the spirit of what the TV show was about. Now that got me thinking, is it the best? What other TV shows had great movies that came from them? So I started doing some research, and I decided I was going to write an opinion piece on that. So you can, if you are interested, go ahead and click on the link below in the show notes for Brunansky's blog, as you can see right here. And that'll actually take you right to that opinion piece, and you can go ahead and read that. I was started off with the top 5. After doing some research, I realized I needed at least 2 honorable mentions. So there's actually 7 of what I think are probably the best small screen from inside your living room to the big screen at your favorite movie theater adaptations. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested, and then please leave a comment below if you agree or disagree. I will say that Batman 66 did come in at number 1 for me, but I do feel that the other 6 are going to surprise you, and especially where they were placed and ranked, and who I actually thought did a good job. I think some of those might surprise you. So check that out. All right, now before we go, I do want to say that it is officially Shark Week. So I hope you guys have got your popcorn ready for all the great shark shows. I always get excited about Shark Week because sometimes the shows they come up with are so ridiculous. It's fantastic. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited and you enjoy Shark Week, because right after Shark Week is over, NFL preseason will be kicking in pretty soon. Go Steel Town, go. So I'm hoping that this week is enjoyable, and then the next week or 2 after that just flies by so we can get to NFL preseason. Don't worry if you're freaking out. You're like, dude, I watch your show because of movie news. I do not want to hear about football. You won't, unless there's something like super awesome that like happens in a game where like Le'Veon Bell just like destroys it, and I'll be like, my boys. So then you might hear about that, but otherwise we won't be getting into football. So rest assured, calm your minds, don't freak out, let go of your hair, stop setting fire to your desk. It'll be okay. Relax. We're going to get through this together, and I will still be watching football. All right, everybody. Have a great week. I hope you guys have enjoyed this 3rd episode of Brunansky's vlog. Thank you for clicking subscribe. If you haven't, please go ahead and do that now so you don't miss any future episodes or segments. Thank you again for the comments that you guys have been leaving. I promise I will get back to you guys on those. If you haven't, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook as well. You can see those pages here on this page right now. Appreciate everything, and have a great week, guys, and I will see you next Monday.